Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing an MCU character tier list. Now if you don't know, the MCU is without question my favorite film franchise of all time, and one of the big reasons is because of the characters. The MCU has so many interesting and rich, well-developed characters that make the history and lore of the universe super rich and fun to watch. Now the tiers are pretty standard. We have the basic S through F, self-explanatory. F is kind of like the bad ones. D is kind of the whatever. C is better than an whatever, like more indifferent, I suppose. B is I like this character. A is this character is awesome. S is this is one of the best characters of all time. And the top 5 is self-explanatory. Jumping right in, we have Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man's going top 5. Robert Downey Jr. is incredible in the role. Thankfully, he'll be getting some awards recognition for Oppenheimer pretty soon. But he kills it in every movie he's in. The character arc from the very first Iron Man to Endgame is one of the best, period. It's incredible. One thing I will add about this list is I ordered it by movie. Next up is Rhodey. I like Rhodey. Rhodey's a good character. It is kind of weird that they recast him, but Don Cheadle does a good job in the role. He just hasn't ever really gotten a chance to really shine, but he's a very good supporting character. Pepper, I'm also going to put in B. Pepper's a great love interest character. She has great personality. She's interesting. Ironmonger. Okay, look, I love the first Iron Man movie like most people, but one of the weak parts is easily Ironmonger. I'm going to put him in D. I think Jeff Bridges kills the role, but just not an interesting character. He's just a bigger Iron Man. That is something that the MCU is kind of guilty of, is that a lot of the villains end up being a bigger version of the good guy. Alright, next is Nick Fury, obviously S tier. Sam Jackson is just delightful in every role he's in, and he's especially good as Nick Fury. This guy was born to play this role, even in something like Secret Invasion, which most people agree is either bad or kinda I'm in the tier. I don't think the MCU's ever produced a straight up bad product. Hot take maybe, but even in something like that, he elevates the material. Phil Coulson, I'm going to put in B. I like Phil Coulson. He's got great chemistry and screen presence from Clark Gregg, and he's a great catalyst for the Avengers fully teaming up in the first Avengers film. Happy Hogan's been there since the beginning. I love Happy. He's great. Jon Favreau started the universe, and he's just terrific, especially in the Spider-Man films. I love him in those films. Howard Stark. I'm kind of indifferent on Howard Stark, but he has a great impact to the characters. Yinsen, I'm going to put in B, because even though he doesn't have much screen time, he's only really in the first act of Iron Man. The impact he leaves on Tony is irreversible. The final lines he says are just beautiful. Hulk, he's going to be A. I really like the Hulk that we have in the MCU. I wish they would go back to Angry Hulk, but I do like Professor Hulk, mostly in Endgame. Professor Hulk and She-Hulk was kind of whatever. I want to see Hulk really come back. Emil Blonsky / The Abomination, I don't really like this character. I didn't like him in The Incredible Hulk. I didn't like him in She-Hulk. Thunderbolt Ross. Kind of similar feelings to Howard Stark. More of an impactful character than one that I really care about. And also, rest in peace, William Hurt. Betty Ross, kind of a whatever character in my opinion. I'm mostly indifferent. Justin Hammer is going in B simply because of Sam Rockwell. He's only in Iron Man 2, and he's one of the few really great aspects of Iron Man 2. He's so entertaining. He's like the anti-Tony Stark. Black Widow, obviously S tier. Her arc from Iron Man 2 till Endgame is wonderful. Sacrifice, found families, and Scarlett Johansson kills it. One of my least favorite villains in the MCU is Whiplash. Mickey Rourke's performance is annoying, and he's just a bad guy. Thor, S tier. At least top of S tier. He probably would have been in the top 5 if it weren't for Love and Thunder, which I don't hate, by the way. But I feel like that movie takes some interesting aspects of Thor and doesn't focus on them at all. Like loneliness and wanting to find love is interesting and relatable, but they don't do anything with it. But other than that, his story from Ragnarok to Endgame is one of my favorites, and one of the most relatable, I feel like. Loki, also S tier, especially after Loki Season 2. Loki Season 2 was amazing. Tom Hiddleston is perfect in this role. Villain, anti-hero, hero, whatever role Loki takes, he's always fantastic. Jane, despite some stuff that I find a little cringeworthy in Thor Love and Thunder about Jane, I really do like the stuff that they do with her character in that movie. So I'm going to put her in at least C tier. If it was just the first 2 Thor movies, I'd probably put in D. But whenever the movie does actually focus on the serious aspects of her character, it's genuinely compelling. Eric Selvig, kind of another indifferent character. Love Stellan Skarsgård, and he's fine in the role. That's really all I have to say about him. Darcy, if it weren't for WandaVision, she would definitely be in D tier, but I really liked Darcy in WandaVision. Odin, at least B, simply because of Anthony Hopkins. I mean, come on. Heimdall. I'm going to put in C because I'm also kind of indifferent. I love Idris Elba in the role, but I don't really have much to say about him. Sort of the same with Frigga. She has an amazing scene in Endgame. Don't really have much to say about her. Jasper Sitwell. Jasper Sitwell is a very fine, and he serves his purpose as an antagonist in Winter Soldier and his small roles before then. Steve Rogers, Captain America, top 5. Easy top 5. Like Tony before him from the first Captain America movie up until Endgame, his arc is pretty much perfect, especially Winter Soldier and Civil War. What I really love about him is that despite being pro-America and wanting to do the right thing for his country, he will stand up for the right thing no matter what, even if it defies his country, like in Winter Soldier and in Civil War. Dr. Erskine. I'm going to put him in D. Stanley Tucci is good in the role, but he has like maybe 10 minutes of screen time, not much to really go on. Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, is an S tier character. I loved him in pretty much every appearance, especially in Civil War. That's my favorite appearance of Bucky. Peggy Carter. I think Peggy Carter is great, especially in Captain America 1. You can really see why Steve fell in love with her in that movie. Red Skull is a serviceable villain in Captain America the First Avenger. He's kind of just Nazi bad guy. I really like his short appearances in Infinity War and Endgame. Arnim Zola, sort of like Red Skull, serviceable in the First Avenger, but he has a very good and quite chilling scene in The Winter Soldier. Hawkeye, A tier. Everybody loves the clown on Hawkeye, but Jeremy Renner is just great in the role, and whenever he's on screen, he brings something. I really liked him in the Hawkeye show, and I really loved the way they did his character in Endgame. Maria Hill, I'm going to put in B for all her appearances prior to Secret Invasion. She's pretty good. I really like the character. And then they don't do her character much justice in Secret Invasion. They kill her off at the end of the first episode and barely mention her again. It's whatever. Aldrich Killian, I don't really know where to put this guy, to be honest, because he's a serviceable villain at best, but he's significantly weaker than the fake Mandarin in the first half of the film. So I'm just going to put him in D because of that. Trevor, I'm going to put Trevor in D, even though Trevor is really funny in Shang-Chi. He's really great as the fake Mandarin in the first half of the movie, and then the second half, and then he's just a clown. Not the best. And I really like Iron Man 3. F for Curse and Malekith. Two of the worst MCU villains. They're just bad guys. Falcon. Falcon's going in A. Well, actually, the new Captain America is going in A. Sam is a great character. He's always got Steve's back, no matter what. And his arc through Falcon and the Winter Soldier about struggling with becoming Captain America and taking up the mantle of his friend is great. Not everything about that show worked, but that was one of them. Crossbones is also a pretty serviceable villain. Frank Grillo really brings a lot to the character. Alexander Pierce is a great villain in Winter Soldier. He has understandable motivations, but he's also very clearly evil. Sharon Carter, I probably would have put Sharon in B if it weren't for the weird twist at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where she's apparently a bad guy now. I don't really understand why they did that, but we'll see where that goes. Now, most of the Guardians are going to show up here, and most of them are just going to automatically go to S tier, because the Guardians are my favorite group of characters in the MCU. None of them will be in top 5. Correction, that is incorrect. Most of them won't be in the top 5, but I love them all. Star-Lord, absolutely S tier. Chris Pratt is amazing in the role. He's hilarious and heartfelt. Nebula has had one of the best character arcs in the MCU, struggling with her grief and pain, and by the time we get to Guardians 3, she's practically the new leader. However, I will say Yondu will be an A, simply because he doesn't have as much stuff to do as the rest of the Guardians, but what he does in 2 with his relationship with Peter is heartbreaking, honestly. Gamora, also S, both prior to her death and after her death with the different universe Gamora. I love the way they ended her story in Volume 3. Rocket Raccoon is top 5. He is my favorite of the Guardians. He's always been my favorite of the Guardians since the first one came out, almost 10 years at this point. I love this character. He's snarky, he's funny, he's emotionally relatable, and his story arc is genuinely devastating and heartbreaking, like especially in Volume 3. I'm going to put Drax in A. I really like Drax. He's very fun. Dave Bautista is hilarious in the role. Groot. I am Groot. Kraglin? I will put in B. I really like Kraglin. Kraglin doesn't get as much to do, but he has a very nice little story with Yondu and the Arrow from Volume 2 to Volume 3. Ronan is a serviceable villain. He's only really elevated by the performance from Lee Pace. He's great in the movie, but he is kind of just, I'm a bad guy. Collector, I'm also going to put in D simply because we haven't had much with him at all. He shows up at the end of Thor 2. He has a small role in Guardians 1 and an even smaller role in Infinity War. Baron Strucker, also D tier, not a bad character, but not much to do either. Okay, the only reason I'm not putting Ulysses Claw in A tier is because they kill him off halfway through Black Panther. I loved his short appearance in Age of Ultron, and I loved him more in the first Black Panther. He has this great unhinged villain energy, and he's super fun to watch, and Andy Serkis is one of my favorite actors. Laura Barton is a solid side character. Pietro, I'm going to put in B. I really enjoy his character in Age of Ultron, but especially for the impact he has on his sister. Ultron is going in B at minimum because of the hilarious motivation to me of he scans the internet for 5 seconds and immediately determines that the world needs to die, which honestly is kind of relatable. Vision's one of my favorites. Paul Bettany was a fantastic Jarvis, but he's just a voice. But then they brought him to do Vision. He's Wanda's partner. I've loved every appearance of the character. He always has something interesting to say, and his emotional impact on the characters really hits home. Ant-Man. I'm going to put Ant-Man in A. Everybody loves Paul Rudd. The only reason I'm not going to put him in S is because I feel like they don't do enough with his character in Quantumania. Though, to be fair, they don't really do enough with any character in Quantumania. I don't hate that movie. Like I said at the beginning, I don't think the MCU has put out anything outright genuinely bad. Quantumania is just one of the weaker films, unfortunately. But I love the character. I loved him most especially in Endgame. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I'm going to put Wasp in C. I'm not huge on this character, and like a lot of characters in Quantumania, she gets almost nothing to do with that movie, but I really like her in Ant-Man 2. Cassie is going to be in C as well. If I'm being honest, I preferred the actress from Endgame who played her, even though she's in the movie for much less time than Catherine Newton. I don't really know why they recast her, but Catherine Newton's good in the role. I don't have any issues with her, but like a lot of other characters in Quantumania, given almost nothing to do. This is mainly in C tier because of her relationship with Scott in the first 2 Ant-Man films. Hank Pym. Michael Douglas is effortlessly great in this series of movies. Even in Quantumania, he's fun. Yellow Jacket is another serviceable villain. He's another bad guy, but he is elevated by the performance. And by the way, I don't have MODOK in this list. I forgot to add him, but if MODOK was in here, easy F tier. I hated the way they did MODOK in Quantumania. Luis, A tier for the memes. B tier if I'm being perfectly honest, but A tier for the jokes because he's hilarious. Tom Holland's Spider-Man. This is definitely a hot take. By far, my favorite Spider-Man. When Homecoming came out, I was at the perfect age for that movie. So much to relate to. I love his arc throughout the MCU. Basically, his trilogy being a trilogy of an origin story. I think he gives the best performances as Spider-Man. Hot take, I know, but whatever. Aunt May will be B tier, simply because of the impact from No Way Home. The way they incorporated her character in No Way Home was fantastic. And she's just delightful to watch. Maybe not quite as emotionally resonant as the other 2 Aunt Mays from film, but I still really like her. King T'Chaka, simply for the impact on the characters, go in and see. And the actor who plays him in Civil War and Black Panther, absolutely terrific. Zemo, I think, is one of the most underrated villains in the MCU. He has one of the most relatable motivations. He just wants to see the Avengers torn apart because he feels that they killed his family. Maybe his plan is a little over elaborate, but I mean, so is the Joker in The Dark Knight, and the Joker is the greatest villain of all time. Plus, we get the Zemo dance in The Falcon Show. Everett Ross. I like Everett Ross. I'm going to put him in B. Martin Freeman is a fun actor. I really like him in a lot of things. He doesn't get as much to do in Wakanda Forever, unfortunately, but I really love the way they incorporated him in the first Black Panther. Doctor Strange. Easy S tier. At least the middle of S tier. I'm not really ranking these except for the top 5 in any specific order, but among the S tiers, I would place him probably in the middle. I love Benedict Cumberbatch in the role. He's perfectly cast. And if I'm being perfectly honest, this is definitely a hot take. I loved his character arc in Multiverse of Madness. It's so simple, but it's so effective of being humbled moving on from past loves, allowing other people to take the wheel because he can't do it properly. I love the way they did that arc. I think that movie is super underrated and way overhated. I have plenty of opinions on that film, mostly positive with some slight negatives, but that's not really for this video. The Ancient One. The Ancient One is terrific in the first Doctor Strange and also in Endgame. Her scene in Endgame is maybe one of my favorites in that movie. She's a great character to motivate Strange beyond just being this self-absorbed egomaniac. Christine Palmer is one of my favorite quote-unquote love interests in the MCU. Rachel McAdams is one of my favorite actresses. She's not really one that I think of immediately when I think of favorite actors, but every time I see her show up in a movie or a show, I'm just delighted. And the character is great. She's very fiercely independent from Strange. She doesn't rely on him in any way, and they mutually fall apart. And I really like the fact that Strange doesn't end up with her in the end. Dormammu is getting D. Dormammu's kind of a non-character. He's just a force, but I'm putting him in D because Dormammu, I've come to bargain, is just too good of a scene. Wong is A. Self-explanatory. Mordo, I'm gonna put in B. I really like Mordo. First of all, Chiwetel Ejiofor is one of the best actors, period. Dude is amazing in everything. He makes everything that he's in feel super credible, as like you're watching a film. But I also really love the way that they handle him in the first Doctor Strange. He's fine in Multiverse of Madness, but it is a different Mordo. He's not on this list. But this guy who's so dedicated to rules and making sure that everything ends up right, he sees that all the people who are doing these heroic things around him are doing the opposite of that and breaking the rules, and he feels that that's wrong. I really like the way they do that motivation. Caecilius, I'm gonna unfortunately put in F. Mads Mikkelsen is, again, one of my favorite actors, but they completely waste him in this movie. His motivation is actually somewhat interesting, of wanting to take humanity to a realm beyond time so people can't die. But that's the only thing to his character. Other than that, he's bad guy with bad guy eyes. Mantis, another S tier. If it weren't for the Holiday Special and Volume 3, she might have been in B, but the Holiday Special and Volume 3 does so much with her character. From being Peter Quill's sister to her dynamics with Drax and Nebula. Taserface, beyond a funny joke, I'm going to put him in F. I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I actually like it more than the first one, contrary to popular opinion. But I'll admit that I don't love Taserface. Aisha, I'm going to put in D. In Guardians 2, and especially in Guardians 3, she's kind of an afterthought. Not criticisms towards those movies, by the way, but like the character itself. Ego, like Zemo, is one of the most underrated villains in the MCU. Kurt Russell is just fantastic in this role. You genuinely feel like there's this father-son bond between him and Peter Quill, and you're heartbroken when he reveals that he killed Meredith. Ned Leeds is the ultimate bro. Self-explanatory. Vulture, Michael Keaton, kills this role. He's just great. One of the most understandable and relatable MCU villains, and he actually puts up a real genuine fight against Spider-Man. MJ, A. Zendaya is a great actress. Very much looking forward to see her in Dune Part 2. And I think her and Tom Holland have electric chemistry in Far From Home and No Way Home. Makes sense why they're dating in real life. Surtur, he's not a bad character, but he's mostly, like Dormammu, a big thing to destroy stuff. Scourge, unfortunately D as well. I love Carl Urban, Billy Butcher, Eomer from Lord of the Rings. Love the guy. Great actor. He's just kind of a silly role in Ragnarok. He gets a nice little redemption arc, but that's about it. Valkyrie, I don't love Valkyrie, but I really like Valkyrie. They don't do much with her character in Love and Thunder, unfortunately. If they did something great there, maybe A. Hela is a really fun villain. Not an in-depth villain like Pierce or Zemo or Vulture, but just a really fun one that really chews up the screen time. Korg, unfortunately, kind of annoyed me in Love and Thunder, so I'm going to put him in B. However, based off of Ragnarok, he would have been in A. He's hysterical in Ragnarok. The Grandmaster, B. He's so just weird, and I love that about the character. Black Panther, T'Challa, S tier. May you rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Absolute legend, legendary character. Queen Ramonda. You see, now I don't know where to place her because she has a truly show-stopping role in Wakanda Forever. She was nominated for an Oscar for that movie. And to be quite honest, she probably should have won it over Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't even the best supporting actress role in Everything Everywhere All at Once, let alone the best supporting actress category last year. But I can't quite put her in A. She's absolutely phenomenal in Wakanda Forever, and I love her in that movie. But I can't quite put her above that. Similar but opposite with M'Baku. He's kind of a showstopper in the first Black Panther. He's a big standout, but he's kind of underutilized in Wakanda Forever. So I'm going to put him in B. Eric Stevens, Killmonger, other than Loki, the first villain going in S tier. Understandable motivation, all-time villain performance for the MCU from Michael B. Jordan, and a true force to be reckoned with from T'Challa. W'Kabi, I'm going to put in C. He's interesting enough, great catalyst for certain characters. Other than that, not much to say on him. Shuri, based off of just Wakanda Forever alone, A. Letitia Wright crushes it in that movie. She had a lot to step up to, especially after Chadwick's passing, and I think she absolutely delivers in that film. Okoye. Okoye is great. Not one of my favorite side characters, but I love her anyway. Same with Nakia. I wish she was in Wakanda Forever more. That's my only, genuine criticism with Wakanda Forever, is that I wish she was in it more. Eitri the Dwarf. Who doesn't love Peter Dinklage? But I will have to say, him only showing up for 5 minutes in Infinity War is kind of weird. But he provides enough of an impact to put him in at least C. Thanos. Thanos is one of the greatest villains of all time. Easy S tier. No question. Understandable motivations, super threatening, imposing, amazing performance from Josh Brolin, and he wins. People left Infinity War walking out of the theater like deer looking at headlights. People were in shock. And he's great in Endgame too. Not quite on the same level as Infinity War because it is a different Thanos, but what else can you say about the guy? Ghost. Ghost is weird because I think the character is somewhat interesting, but as a villain, she's a bad villain, unfortunately. Bill Foster. I don't really have much of an opinion on Bill Foster, so I'm just going to place him in D for now. Janet Van Dyne. Weirdly one of the highlights of Quantumania, but I can't really say much about the character other than that. John Krasinski is going in B. Jimmy Woo is delightful, and John Krasinski is Randall Park, but we all know the funny joke. It's a good joke. He's great in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's one of my favorite parts of that movie, and he's a great side character in WandaVision. At least B. Sonny Birch is one of the stupidest characters in the entire MCU. I'm not even going to elaborate. Captain Marvel is incredibly overhated. The first film is underrated. It's not a great movie, but I really enjoy it. I don't really understand the hate it gets. She's really solid in Endgame, and she's super fun in the Marvels, which was highly underrated. Not enough people want to go see it. Hate campaigns and grifters on YouTube and the internet piss me off. And they finally gave Brie Larson some really interesting and fun dynamics to act with in the Marvels. She finally got to show a bit of her range, because she's an incredible actress. They just haven't been using her very well. Yon-Rogg is a extremely boring villain. Jude Law is bad guy who works for robot bad guy in Captain Marvel. Talos, I'm going to put him in C. He's one of my favorite parts of the first Captain Marvel movie, but he's very uninteresting in Secret Invasion, unfortunately. Maria Rambeau, I'm going to put in C. She's perfectly serviceable. They like her showing up in different multiverses as a superhero for some reason, which, that's fine. The actress is great, but it is kind of weird that they keep doing that. Monica Rambeau, she's super fun in the Marvels. She's super fun in WandaVision. B tier at least. Now this is going to be a hot take. Mysterio is S tier for me. I know this is a big hot take because I know the internet likes to crap on Far From Home, but I love Far From Home, and one of the big reasons is because of Jake Gyllenhaal. First of all, Jake Gyllenhaal is my favorite actor, so there's some bias there, but I also really love the way that they actually did Mysterio in this film, where his illusions are done with holograms and drones, and his fishbowl helmet and suit is all motion capture stuff. I really like the way they did that, and the fact that he's just a straight up unhinged psycho. It's great, I love it. J. Jonah Jameson, A tier. Agatha, I'm going to put in B. I think Agatha is a really fun side character and antagonist, especially in WandaVision. I genuinely am excited for her show for many reasons. One not really having to do with Agatha herself, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Catherine Hahn's great. I'm going to put both Billy and Tommy Maximoff in C. They serve their purpose well. That's about it. I don't really have much to say about them. Hayward is a jerk, but he's an effective jerk. Ralph Boner, funny meme. Not necessarily a great character. I love that they brought back Evan Peters for the role to play a fake Quicksilver. I thought that was genuinely kind of genius, and I do really like the fact that they did a bait and switch. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but whatever. But I really love the way they did it. But he's D tier because he's not really a great character. Wanda Maximoff I saved for WandaVision because she's my favorite character. Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, is my favorite character in the whole MCU. I really liked her from Age of Ultron to Endgame. She had a pretty solid arc there, but she's a side character. She was placed on the sidelines very purposefully. And then they finally gave the character and Elizabeth Olsen time to shine as the character in WandaVision, and I think that Elizabeth Olsen gives the single best performance in the entire MCU in WandaVision. Like, it was nominated for an Emmy. It probably should have won the Emmy, if we're being honest. That it's just an incredibly layered and intricate emotional performance. And personally, I feel that at the end of WandaVision, they set it up to where it could go either way. She could become anti-hero Scarlet Witch or villain Scarlet Witch. They decided to go with the villain Scarlet Witch. There's some weird things about the way they handle her as a villain in Multiverse of Madness, but she's easily my favorite part of that movie. I love that film. Unabashedly, I don't care what people have to say. She's a great villain, a great foil for Doctor Strange in that film. She's going through kind of a similar thing with wanting to be with loved ones, but being unable to, and the sinister Strange that we meet later on in the film is a great mirror of what Wanda could have ended up being. However, I will say, I hate the way that they end her character in Multiverse of Madness because she obviously didn't die. She's gonna come back, whether it's in a solo movie, which is highly rumored. Please, Marvel, give me that movie. I want it a lot. It's highly rumored, probably likely. Elizabeth Olsen's obviously gonna come back in the role. She's become immensely popular since then. It's just annoying. But I love this character so much because it's a character that deals with so many things that people in real life deal with. Grief, escapism, pain. In the last year, I've lost some people. I've lost a pet. So my appreciation for the character and the way I relate to her has increased since then. But I also relate on a deep level of using media like movies, games, TV shows as a form of escapism from the anxiety and, quite frankly, horror of real life. And you don't see that happen very often with movie characters. Please, Marvel, make a comeback as soon as possible. Alright, we got Walmart Captain America, John Walker. One of my favorite parts of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. In fact, he might be my favorite part of that show. He's interesting, he's layered, he's clearly flawed, and he definitely should not be Captain America. But that's what made him interesting. I hope in whatever they decide to bring him back, they continue this sort of character development with him because I could see him easily rising the ranks. Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers are unfortunately an F. Some of the weaker villains that they've ever done. I understand the motivation, just very poorly done in my opinion. Isaiah Bradley in Falcon and Winter Soldier has very heartbreaking story. He's not in the show much, but it's quite sad. Sylvie is a great addition to the Loki show. Sophia DiMartino is wonderful in the role. Unfortunately, she doesn't get as much to do in season 2 as she did in season 1, but either way, she was still wonderful in that season. Mobius, everybody loves our jet ski bro. Owen Wilson being in the MCU as a gimmick would have been awesome, but he gets a genuine character with a lot of meat to it and a surprisingly wholesome relationship with Loki, especially in season 2. Ravonna Renslayer, pretty interesting sort of side antagonist. He Who Remains, if it was just season 1, probably B, but season 2, A. He Who Remains in Loki is a fantastic semi-antagonist. Jonathan Majors crushes it in the role. It really is a shame that he turned out to be a scumbag. I'm glad Marvel fired him out after all the hijinks that ensued, but it really sucks because he was really talented and he brought a lot to Kang and He Who Remains, but Marvel made the right call in getting rid of him. Agent B12, I believe that's the name. She's a good side character. Loki has a lot of really solid side characters that I really enjoyed. Yelena, one of the best additions in Phase 4. Florence Pugh is awesome in everything, and she's by far my favorite part of the Black Widow film. Red Guardian, who doesn't love David Harbour? At least B tier. Melina, probably my least favorite out of the core 4 group from the Black Widow movie, but Rachel Weisz is still good. Dreykov is one of the worst villains in the MCU. He's just bad guy. I am bad guy, but Russian. And Taskmaster was nearly butchered, unfortunately. I like some aspects of what they were trying to do, but it just does not come together. Shang-Chi, along with Yelena, is one of the best additions since Endgame. Great character, great movie. A lot of the Shang-Chi side characters are terrific, like Katie. I know a lot of people get annoyed by Awkwafina, but I think she's really solid in this movie. And by far, the best part of Shang-Chi is Wenwu, S tier. Tony Leung as the real Mandarin is just a phenomenal performance overall. But he provides such humanity and weight to this character. Like, you understand him and feel for him despite the fact that he's a villain. And then Zhu Xiaoling, I hope I pronounced that right, as Shang-Chi's sister. Great new side character. The Eternals. I think Icarus is one of the more interesting ones. He's sort of like a Shakespearean villain in the fact that he's ultra dedicated to Arishem, but he's unwilling to actually go the length to kill his teammates to keep Arishem's plan going. Cersei, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting of the Eternals. Not necessarily the best lead character that they could have chosen, but I really enjoyed her. Thena is a pretty solidly interesting character, having this PTSD response to her memories. Gilgamesh is kind of a whatever character in my opinion, so I'm going to place him in C. Makari is great. Love Makari. Same with Druig. Druig and Makari are terrific. King goes B. I actually really appreciate the way they handle him in the third act. Like Icarus, he's super dedicated to Arishem, but at the same time, he's unwilling to fight his friends, so he just leaves. While for a filmmaking standpoint, it's kind of weird that one of the main characters just leaves. I think it's really solid character-wise. Sprite, I didn't dislike her at first, but the more I watch the movie, I find her more and more annoying. So I'm going to place her in F. I don't really like the character. C tier. I don't really remember this guy, to be honest. Ajak, kind of C tier as well. Crow. Man, they flubbed this character. They could have done something so interesting, and they did not. He's literally the most nothing burger ever. Kate Bishop is awesome. The Hawkeye show, I didn't love it entirely, but I loved her character. Haley Steinfeld's great and everything. Kingpin. Okay, now, if we're just talking about Hawkeye and Echo, which I have not finished Echo, I don't know why. I just haven't. If we're considering just Hawkeye, he'd probably be in C. But I am going to cheat and consider the Daredevil show, in which easy S tier, one of the best Marvel villains of all time. Echo, I'm going to place her in C for now. I have not finished the show. Maybe it could go up, maybe it could go down from there. We have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I love the way that they concluded their stories here by giving Tobey a chance to save Green Goblin from the glider and giving Andrew a chance to save MJ. It's great. And the theater just erupted when they came out. I love that. Green Goblin, S tier. He's so much better in No Way Home than the original Spider-Man movie. It's unreal. I'm going to put Otto in B. If we're talking about Spider-Man 2, which I'm not, he'd probably be in A. But he's a pretty solid addition to No Way Home. Electro, I'm going to also put in B. They actually give him a nice little character arc. Pun not intended. Electricity joke, I guess. He's really a stupid character in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And they gave Jamie Foxx a bit of a chance to redeem himself as the character. Sandman and Lizard they're not bad, but they're just kind of there. Matt Murdock, Daredevil. If we're just going to consider his MCU, his official MCU appearances, probably B tier. But I'm going to once again cheat because he's one of the best characters. The show is incredible, and his character is incredible. Moon Knight. Mark Spector and Steven, awesome character. Oscar Isaac kills it. The Moon Knight show has a bunch of issues with its final episode, but up until then I thought it was really great, specifically because of the character of Moon Knight. Layla, a pretty solid side character. Khonshu, also pretty solid side character. I'm going to place Arthur Harrow in B tier. He could have been an A tier villain, but I feel like they kind of do nothing with his character in the final episode, because he's actually pretty interesting up until then. He has a solid motivation, and Ethan Hawke is great. America Chavez. I really liked America Chavez in Multiverse of Madness. She's kind of more of a plot device, but I still really enjoyed her character. Miss Marvel is delightful. Iman Vellani is easily the best part of the Marvels, and that's a movie I really enjoyed for the most part anyway, but she really elevated it. She made the Miss Marvel show delightful to watch. And then Miss Marvel's parents, I'm going to place in B. Like Iman Vellani, they're just delightful to watch. The lead clandestine from Miss Marvel, also the main villain, maybe the worst villains in the history of the MCU, if I'm being honest. They're nothing. They die before the final episode even happens. I don't know what they were going for with that. This one hurts me, because Gore the God Butcher could have been one of the best MCU villains of all time, because they got Christian Bale playing him. They were going to base it off of one of the most interesting Thor villain comic storylines, and they gave Christian Bale nothing to do in the movie. He's in less than 10 minutes of the movie, I think. When he's in the movie, he's fine. He's really entertaining. But we don't even get to see Gore the God Butcher butcher gods. it's crazy because the comic storyline is so interesting and he's so threatening and terrifying. And this would have been a perfect role for Christian Bale to do, but they just gave him nothing. At most, put him in C tier. I wish he could go higher, but he won't. Okay, look, I did not hate Thor: Love and Thunder. I didn't even dislike Thor: Love and Thunder. I think it's just an okay film. When I do MCU rewatch marathons, which aren't as often as they used to be, I will gladly watch the movie. However, I do hate the omnipotent city scene, and I hate Russell Crowe's Zeus. I did not enjoy that scene whatsoever, primarily because of this character. I don't know what they were trying to do with him. He wasn't funny. That's all I have to say. She-Hulk, the hate on the show was overblown. It wasn't a great show, but it was definitely overblown hate. Same with the hate on the character. I didn't love the character, but I'm at least going to put her in C. Namor was a terrific anti-hero antagonist for Wakanda Forever. The actor, I believe his name is Tenoch Huerta. Correct me if I pronounce that wrong. Dude kills it in the role. You understand his motivations. He's genuinely intimidating. The Ludwig Göransson's score for him is fantastic. He's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Ironheart. They don't give her much to do in Wakanda Forever, so I'm going to put her in C tier, but I am looking forward to the show. Kang from Quantumania. He was disappointing, but he's also the best part of the movie, in my opinion. Because Jonathan Majors kills it. He's great in the movie. He's intimidating. You understand why he might be a threat. But then he gets beaten by futuristic ants, and he gets black holed into his own machine by himself. Like, what? Who thought that was a good idea? Like, I like the fact that when Ant-Man and Kang have a straight-up fist fight, Kang just bodies him. Ant-Man doesn't get, like, a single punch off, at least effectively. Like, he kicks the crap out of Scott, but then he gets beaten by his own machine. I don't know what they're doing there. One of the reasons why Quantumania is so underwhelming is because of the completely lackluster side characters. I believe this character's name is Zentara, played by Katie O'Brien, one of my least favorite parts of the movie. I thought she was extremely flat in the film. Nothing against the actress, but I felt like the character and the performance was super flat and dragged the movie down, similar with Quasar. Just nothing there. The High Evolutionary is one of the most despicable villains in the history of the MCU, and just for that, I'm going to put him in A. He doesn't have any specific understandable motivation other than wanting to make things perfect, but Chukwudi Iwuji just kills it as this hateful, evil scumbag. Cosmo the Space Dog is best doggo. I'm gonna put Adam Warlock in C because he isn't in Guardians 3 that much, and from my understanding, he's quite different from the comic versions, but I enjoyed his presence in the film, so at least C tier. Lila, I wish I could put her in A because of the emotional impact, but as a character, I can't quite put her in A, so I'm gonna put her in B. She's an adorable little otter, and her relationship with Rocket is soul-crushing, if I'm being honest. Gaia from Secret Invasion. Oh boy. If it weren't for the finale of the show, I might have put her in C. But what they do with the finale in general is dumb, but what they do with the character in the finale is especially stupid. I can't quite put her in F, but definitely D tier. Gravik, similar to Gaia, wasn't the worst villain in the show, but then they turn him into weird Super Skrull thing and then dies. So D tier. As much as I enjoyed the Marvels, the villain Darban was not one of the highlights. First of all, it's just kind of a weird name for the main villain of a Marvel movie, Darben. Like, the motivation kind of makes sense. She wants to fix her planet, but the character just has nothing to her, unfortunately. So I have to put her in F. I don't really want to, but I have to. That's every character in the list. My top 5. My number 1 favorite MCU character is Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Number 2 is Tony Stark. Number 3 is Captain America. Number 4 is Spider-Man. And number 5 is Rocket. And then the rest are in no particular order other than the tier. Whether or not you agreed with me or disagreed with me a lot, feel free to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, comment. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.
If it is to be said, so it is.